Hello, students. We are going to start a new series of lectures from embryology, and in this chapter, we are going to start from gametogenesis. Gametogenesis, as you know, are of two types. The one in females is known as oogenesis, while the one in males is known as spermatogenesis. So, we are going to talk about these three topics in today's lectures. Okay, starting from gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis? How will you define it? Gametogenesis is actually the production and the development of and maturation of the gametes. Okay, and as you know that gametes are of two types. The one which are present in the males is known as sperms, and the one in the females are known as eggs. Okay, and this is the two types of gametes, and as we know that they are both different gametes, so the production terminologies will also be different. The sperm production is known as spermatogenesis, while the eggs formation is known as oogenesis. So both of these will continue as different topics, and they involve different steps, so we will try to explain it separately. Okay, but starting from gametogenesis, we will go towards oogenesis, and then we will go to spermatogenesis. So right from gametogenesis. Okay, how all of the gametogenesis starts. So right in the start, primordial germ cells are the cells which are produced in the apiblast. Okay, and this happens at the second week of development. In embryological life, at the second week of development, primordial germ cells will produced inside the apiblast. Now, what is apiblast? Apiblast are the one of the two layers produced in the second week of development. One is epiblast present above, and the one below is hypoblast. Okay, so these two cells are produced in the second week of development, and as you know that primordial germ cells are produced here at the epiblast at the second week of development. And now as we proceed to the fourth week of development, what changes happen is that at fourth week, these primordial germ cells, they will migrate from epiblast towards the yolk sac. Now, before I draw the migration diagram, I'll try to make you understand about what is yolk sac. These were the two cells, epiblast and hypoblast, and the one cavity present above the epiblast will be known as amniotic cavity. Okay, this cavity is known as amniotic cavity, and the one present below the hypoblast will be known as yolk sac. So now you know where the primordial germ cells are going to migrate after in the fourth week. Okay, these primordial germ cells migrate with this structure. This structure is known as primitive streak. Okay, now the primordial germ cells have arrived at the yolk sac, and this is through the primitive streak. Okay, this is a pathway which provides a path for the migration of the primordial germ cells. So this was at the fourth week. Now at the fifth week of development, what will happen is that these primordial germ cells which have already arrived at the yolk sac, they will migrate from the yolk sac towards the developing gonads. Okay, now the developing gonads are the two structures different in either genders. In males, these primordial germ cells will migrate in testes to the testes. As you know that developing gonads are of two types depending upon the gender. So in testes, they will migrate in the males, and if the gender of the embryo is female, they will migrate towards the ovary. Now you know that in ovary and in testes, the maturation of these primordial germ cells will be known as spermatogenesis and oogenesis respectively in testes and ovaries, and they both will continue as different procedures. So we will try to explain both of them separately. Okay, starting from the oogenesis. But oogenesis and spermatogenesis is here a little bit different, because oogenesis is continued even before the birth, while the spermatogenesis is stopped here, and they further continue at the puberty, when puberty hits. Okay, so this is the difference between oogenesis and spermatogenesis. The difference is that oogenesis continues even before birth, while spermatogenesis does not continue right after here. Okay, So we will continue the process of oogenesis further. Okay, up till now we have studied that primordial germ cells have already migrated towards the developing gonads, and here the developing gonads in case of oogenesis, this developing gonad will be ovary, as we know. Okay, so this is hypothetically a very large ovary, and here the primordial germ cells have already arrived at 5th week of development. Okay, so now they have already migrated, and further the primordial germ cells will here try to mature further. Okay, and from 3rd month of the development to until the 5th month of development, only and only 2 processes will happen with these primordial germ cells, and that 2 processes will be mitosis and meiosis. Okay, so these primordial germ cells inside the ovary are going through only 2 processes, mitosis and meiosis. Okay, as you know, mitosis is the duplication and multiplication of structures. So primordial germ cells. Okay, one thing more is that primordial germ cells can also be called as oogonia here. Okay, because these are the same germ cells which will be further produced and mature to form egg cells. So mitotically dividing the oogonia, there will be multiplication of the oogonia from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 2 to 4 to 8, and so on. Okay, a number of oogonia will be produced, and at the end of the mitosis, as you know that these ovaries have cells, and their cells will shed and come to overlie the or cover the primordial germ cells or the oogonia which was multiplying in between. Okay, so they will they will come and cover the primordial germ cells or oogonia, and these cells which have arrived are will be known as follicular cells. Okay, so up till now at the end of the mitosis this thing is happened. Now further at meiosis, these oogonia will undergo meiosis, only and only these oogonia will undergo meiosis, and they will go into the meiosis but will be stopped at the meiosis 1, prophase 1. Okay, and now when they have already started the meiosis, these oogonia or primary or the primordial germ cells will be now called as primary oocyte. Okay, and this is the thing. Okay, but they will be arrested at the prophase 1, as we know that. Okay, and these primary oocyte will be covered individually by the follicular cells. Before that we have we studied that these oogonia were collectively being surrounded by the follicular cells, but now they are going to be encircled individually by these follicular cells. Okay, so now this new structure which is formed will be known as primordial follicle. Okay, this is the primordial follicle which is now produced. Now the primordial follicle will be consist of 2 things. Here will be at the center will be the primary oocyte, and surrounding cells will be known as follicular cells. Okay, follicular cells and primary oocyte, and this whole structure will be known as primordial oocyte, and this all of this thing has happened till the end of 5th month. Okay, they have completed mitosis and meiosis. At the end of the meiosis, at the end of the 5th week of the 5th month, we have 7 million primordial follicle inside ovaries. Okay, so at the 5th month of development we have 7 million primordial follicle, and from right after that to the 7th month of development, only and only one process will happen inside the ovary. The 7 million primordial follicle which were formed, they will go under degeneration. They will undergo degeneration, and now the degeneration will result in the degeneration of 7 million primordial follicle into 2 million primordial follicle. Okay, among the 7 million primordial follicle, only 2 million primordial follicle will remain, and all of these structures and all of these primordial structures have the following structure: centrally primary oocyte and follicular cells surrounding. Okay, so this was the thing which was happening at the 7th month of development and before month. Okay, this is embryological life, and all of these things are before the birth. And now things which will be happening will be at puberty. It will be postnatal oogenesis, okay, postnatal maturation of the oocyte. Okay, so now all of things have stopped, and at puberty the further reaction will happen. At puberty, what will happen is that FSH, or follicle stimulating hormone surge, will happen, and follicle stimulating hormone will surge, and they will result in the release of 10 to or 15 to 20 primordial follicle every month. These follicles will released, and they will be stimulated and further matured. Okay, so these structures were known as primordial follicle, as we know. And primordial follicle was being converted to the primary follicle due to the FSH surge. Now the primordial follicle will change into primary follicle. So what will be the changes happening? This was the primary oocyte in the center, primary oocyte, which was arrested at prophase 1, and the follicular cells which were surrounding and the primary follicle, the primary oocyte, will now be called as granulosa cells. Why will be they called? Because they were flat epithelium cells before, but now they have they have cuboidal shape, and this layer is known as zona pellucida. This was formed with the combination of both primary oocyte and granulosa cells, and these are granulosa cells. Okay, they have cuboidal shape, and this is the theca cells. Theca cells have now been produced by shedding of the ovarial cells. So this was primary follicle, and this primary follicle will now further grow, and that growing follicle will be as follows. The centrally primary oocyte will be present centrally, and after primary oocyte, there will be this zona pellucida and granulosa cells. These are granulosa cells, and in between granulosa cells and this primary oocyte will be present the zona pellucida, and surrounding the granulosa cells there will be theca cells. But here the theca cells will duplicate, and there will be two types of theca cells, theca interna and theca externa. Okay, and the granulosa cells which was present single layerly, now they have doubled, and there are 2 to 3 layers of granulosa cells present now. Okay, so this was the growing follicle, because it has evolved and it has grown into the growing follicle. Okay, and now you can see that growing follicle will change into antral follicle. Okay, growing follicle, the changes which has already occurred will now be changed into antral follicle. What is the antral follicle? Is that it is the same follicle, but the only difference is that inside the granulosa layer a space will occur. Okay, this was the granulosa cells, these were the theca interna, this was the theca externa. Now you can see that there is a space formed in between the granulosa cells. This space is known as antral space. So due to the presence of this space, this antral follicle, this follicle is now known as antral follicle. Okay, this will change into secondary follicle whenever at puberty there is LH surge. Okay, okay, now this was primary oocyte, but now as the LH surge occurs, this antral follicle will try to ovulate, but it had not complete the primary oocyte has not changed into the secondary oocyte, so it will quickly change into the secondary oocyte, and all of the remaining structures will be same: zona pellucida, granulosa layers, and theca cells. Okay, and now this primary oocyte will change into secondary oocyte by undergoing the process of meiosis 2. Okay, and but it will not complete the meiosis 2, it will be arrested at the metaphase 2. Okay, so this was the result up till now. And then what will happen is that this secondary follicle will be ready to ovulate again when the LH surge happens. LH surge arrives, and this secondary follicle will now try to ovulate. All of the structures will remain: the granulosa cells, the theca cells, and the thing which was in between that will be released. Okay, what was in between? There was this secondary oocyte, and now it has been released from the secondary follicle, and the thing which remains behind will be known as corpus luteum. Okay, corpus luteum is the structure which has been left behind when the secondary oocyte leaves the secondary follicle. Okay, and this corpus luteum will release progesterone, which will cause uterine proliferation and will cause endometrial proliferation. Okay, and this after ovulation there will be two fate for the secondary oocyte: either it will fertilize or it will die. When if the sperms arrives and they both meet, it will cause fertilization and will result in the production of embryo. But the sperm does not arrive, this secondary oocyte will die after 5 days, and this structure which remains behind will be known as corpus luteum, and it will die after 10 to 15 days, and it will die. The progesterone hormone surge will also stops, and it will cause bleeding, which will be known as